I'm just going to come out and say what none of those NFL talking heads and hot take merchants want to say. It does not matter what the Chicago Bears choose to do this offseason. They may have lots of paths available to them, but history shows us that they're going to choose the wrong one because we now have ample evidence and proof of that reality. Time and again, those in Halas Hall have made the wrong decision regardless of what it was, and even if it seemed like the right decision at the time. I'm George Halas, this is The Touchback, and it does not matter if the Bears trade the first overall draft pick, select Caleb Williams, or go on some third path no one sees coming. Whoever the team adds will be joining some bad company on what has become one of the National Football League's most hapless franchises. The band Bad Company putting out an album titled Bad Company with a song called Bad Company is either the most genius or ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I can never decide which one it is, but I'm definitely certain it is one of those two. There's no middle ground on that. Anyway, as it relates to the Chicago Bears this offseason, everyone really just wants to talk about what they should do with the first overall pick. Draft Caleb Williams or another quarterback, trade the pick and keep Justin Fields, trade Justin Fields. But you know, it doesn't matter what they do because we already know what the outcome will be. That being the Bears being a not particularly good football team. Sure, you know, maybe they get a playoff bid and maybe they have a winning record here or there, but by and large, we can expect a fair amount of losing regardless of what they do. That is because losing is kind of what the franchise does. It's really been the Chicago Bear tradition since George Halas retired after the 1967 season. If the Chicago Bears were a WWE Attitude Era wrestler, they would be D'Lo Brown. Not terrible, not a jobber, but still someone that loses more than they won. Entertaining? Sure. Watchable? Yeah, but again, just not successful. At least not successful enough to be relevant. However, as D'Lo Brown's entrance theme once told us, I think you better recognize it. In the case of the Chicago Bears, what we need to recognize is that this is a dysfunctional and bad franchise that probably will not be turning things around even with the #1 overall pick. Let's address the elephant in the room. Chicago was outstanding for 11 seasons under Mike Ditka. A Super Bowl win, 7 playoff appearances, and 7 seasons with 10 or more wins. In those 45 non-Ditka seasons, since George Halas left the sidelines, well, things have been bleak. 1 Super Bowl appearance, 9 playoff appearances, and 7 seasons with 10 or more wins. There have also been 18 seasons with double-digit losses. People are happy to crap all over the Jets for their losing ways, but when compared to the Bears, those Jets Jets are actually downright respectable. Much of the Bears' futility has been self-inflicted. Bad draft picks, bad hires, bad trades. You name anything Chicago should have done, and they probably did the opposite. Hell, Dick Duran got 5 years as head coach of the franchise. That is still just, it's ridiculous. Sorry, Chicago, but man, that must have sucked. Now they're bringing back Matt Eberflus despite the fact he did nothing to warrant a 3rd season in charge of the team. His defenders, of course, will say he went 5-3 to end the 2023 season. That's a cool story, but 4 of those wins came against Arizona, Atlanta, Carolina, and Minnesota. All 4 of those were not playoff teams, and 3 of them had huge quarterback issues. If winning 4 games against some of the NFL's worst qualifies as progress, your bar is entirely too low to begin with. Is Eberflus motivated by Luther Van Dam? You know, Hayden Fox's defensive coordinator at Minnesota State and the Orlando Breakers. There's an episode where Luther Van Dam once talked about setting the bar low so it was easy to step over. And really, when I hear Eberflus or those defending him talk about, well, there's been progress, I can't help but think of Luther Van Dam talking about, if you set the bar low, it's easy to get over it. What I struggle to comprehend the most as it relates to the 45 non-Ditka seasons in Chicago Bears history after George Halas retired is the fact that they've only once made the playoffs in consecutive seasons, and that was a total of 2 seasons. So they have gone back-to-back to the playoffs. Only 1 time in those 45 seasons. Everything else has been a 1 season and in out of the playoffs the next season. I just don't understand how that is possible. Bill O'Brien managed to accomplish consecutive playoff seasons twice in his 6.5 seasons or 6 and change seasons with the Houston Texans. Quick time out here. You could make the case Bill O'Brien's tenure with the Houston Texans in that 6+ years with the franchise was better than the Chicago Bears' entire run without Ditka in 45 seasons. Let's not forget though, people freaking hated Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was seen as a power-hungry dummy who just was not a great NFL head coach, and yet somehow he's better than whatever the Chicago Bears have done. Moving on. While there's been a little talk of the Bears' futility in these discussions about what the team should do with the first overall pick and Justin Fields, it doesn't feel like we fully understand just how bad Bears fans have it. For many folks outside of the Windy City, such as myself, when we hear the Chicago Bears, we immediately think of those glory years under Ditka or some of the legendary players that have donned the blue and orange for Chicago. Holy crap though, when you go and you look at what this team has accomplished beyond that short stretch under Mike Ditka, it's brutal. It's so bad. I just feel like a lot of non-Bears fans just don't appreciate just how abject they have been. The Chicago Bears are basically the Cleveland Browns version 2.0 in terms of just being right down there in the mix for the worst franchise in the NFL over, well, since the Super Bowl era, basically. That's just how bad they've been. You take out 85, you take out the 80s, they are just flat out sucky. All of that brings us back to what the Chicago Bears should do in this season, armed with the #1 overall pick, 2 first-round draft picks, and Justin Fields. Everyone has an opinion on what the Bears should do, why they should do it. And that's all fine and dandy, but it ignores the reality. Doesn't matter what the Bears do, because it's going to end poorly for them. If they trade Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams, Fields will go on to be an All-Pro and win a Super Bowl somewhere else, while Williams ends up injured or struggles under a bad coaching staff. Chicago does the opposite, and Fields likely continues his inconsistent play, while Williams ends up being the second coming of Mahomes some believe he can be. There is always the chance the Chicago Bears do get this decision right, and this becomes the moment where everything turns around for the franchise, and it finally enjoys an extended period of success. However, we do have 45 years of evidence to show us that is the most improbable scenario here. Bad company until the day I die, but for Chicago Bears fans, I'm sorry, but it seems like it's going to be bad football teams until the day you die. Thank you though for watching this video. If you'd like to know more about the time the Chicago Bears were actually kind of good, so much so that they would go on to win the first indoor football game played in NFL history, which also happened to be an NFL championship game, video upper right hand corner of your screen, the place to go. Till next time, I'm Halas. This is the Touchback, and as we like to say around here, hashtag take it out to the 25.